for a hypothetical trade that would take care of the two big orders of business in the NBA right now. It would move Kevin Durant from Brooklyn to Phoenix. You see the Nets would wind up with Donovan Mitchell. The Pacers would get the big man DeAndre Ayton, whom they clearly like, and the Jazz would start their rebuilding around Ben Simmons, Cam Thomas, and a whole bunch of draft picks. Now, notably absent from that, as I bring the Tims back this morning, Tim Legler and Tim Bontemps, notably absent from that, and wherever he is on his vacation right now, Stephen A. Smith is yelling at the screen. How about the Knicks? How about the Knicks? He has wanted Donovan Mitchell forever, and so have they. Yep. Where are they in this?
They're in pursuit of Donovan Mitchell, and I think ultimately they're going to wind up with Donovan Mitchell. And that's because, to your point, since Leon Rose got to the Knicks in 2020, they have been preparing for this moment. They've been stockpiling draft picks. He came from CAA. Donovan Mitchell is rep by CAA. They have been waiting to get a star player. Donovan Mitchell is the first star that's truly become available. They have 8 first-round picks to trade. Danny Ainge, as you said, got a bunch of first-round picks from the Minnesota Timberwolves for Rudy Gobert. I think the Knicks are perfectly positioned to finally get a star, get Donovan Mitchell back home to New York.
All right, so Tim Legler, let's talk about it. If they're able to make a draft pick-based trade, and they have all those first-rounders into the future, if they're able to make a trade that is based primarily in that, what would it make the New York Knicks going forward with Donovan Mitchell?
All right, well, first of all, I agree that they should go for this if they have an opportunity to do it. They need a guy that's got that kind of star power. He's got the personality and the charisma also that they're going to eat up in New York. But here's the real question. How much does Donovan Mitchell make the Knicks climb rungs in the ladder in the Eastern Conference? If we're being honest about it, I think they're still probably a play-in team. I don't think that the New York Knicks then would be a team that's guaranteed to be in the top 6. I think they're somewhere in that play-in format. As good as Donovan Mitchell is, and he's an elite level scorer, I don't know that he moves the needle in terms of making the Knicks a contender. They would still be another, I think, either good, very good to great player away from getting into the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. It's just too good at the very top. And then there's teams in that 5-6 spot. When you look at Toronto and Chicago, I don't even think the Knicks necessarily would be better than them.
I agree with you completely, Tim, but to your point earlier, he is a star, and he could attract potentially other stars down the road. The Knicks have been waiting to get that first star, Donovan Mitchell being available. That is why it's important to them. He doesn't lift their ceiling right now that much, but he gives them upward mobility they don't have right now.
Well, so I'm looking at so they've got Jalen Brunson, who they've just paid all the. They're about to pay R.J. Barrett. I assume he's not who would be going in the other direction.
I think they'd want to keep R.J. Barrett for sure.
So is it Julius Randle? I mean, is Utah making a trade for just the draft picks, or is the other big name here, Julius Randle, Evan Fournier? Who else would be in this trade?
I think more likely this would be built around young guys. You know, it's hard to say exactly, but the Knicks have all these picks. They have guys like Obi Toppin, Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes. They have a bunch of young players they can put in besides R.J. Barrett. I'm sure they'd love to keep R.J. Barrett in that deal. So it's those other young guys, draft picks, that I think is the primary thing that's going to be the driver in this trade.
All right. So, I mean, these are all the possibilities that are out there. And as Summer League comes to an end, most of the NBA goes on vacation. But I would assume the Donovan Mitchell piece of this, you just said you think we're going to wait a while on the Durant news. The Donovan Mitchell of it all feels a little bit more imminent to me sitting here, but I'm not as connected to it as you are. Is that right?
I agree with you because the Knicks in particular are motivated to go get Donovan Mitchell. So I think this, unlike the Kevin Durant situation where there's been, I would say the Nets have not gotten the kind of offers they're looking for. To me, when the Utah Jazz now are saying they're open for business, to me, that's a sign that this is going to get done.
Tim Legler yesterday on this show, sitting right where you're sitting now, at least by my standpoint, because he was in the box just like you are. Nick Friedel said that this is the player, this is the move Miami needs to make. All this talk about Miami trying to get Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is harder to get for the Miami Heat, I would assume, just because he's Kevin Durant, than Donovan Mitchell is, and that if you team Mitchell with Jimmy Butler and that core, that's the move that should be made out there. Obviously, the Knicks are trying to become relevant. The Heat are trying to win a championship. Would Mitchell put them over the top?
Well, first of all, I didn't realize Nick Friedel was in my house yesterday. Apparently, you're saying he was sitting where I'm sitting right now. So I didn't see Nick. He should have at least stopped in the kitchen and said hi when I was eating breakfast. I did not see him. So give him credit. He's ninja-like in his ability to get in and out of houses. But, yeah. Looking at the Heat, listen, I actually would love Donovan Mitchell to be there because the one thing that Miami was exposed for late in the season was their inability to create offense individually outside of Jimmy Butler. I mean, Bam Adebayo had a very disappointing postseason. Even Tyler Hero, I know he dealt with injuries later in the year, but even before that, he was not the same player early in the playoffs that he was in the regular season. And they were exposed, I think, in that way. And it's just a tough sledding to go and let Jimmy Butler be the lone guy that can go create offense in these big moments. So I think Donovan Mitchell there makes a lot of sense if they're able to make that happen. Look, Donovan Mitchell is the type of player that can absolutely get you to another tier, but I think if you're talking about going to a place like the Knicks, that's an awful lot to ask to get into that top 4, which is what we're talking about right now. If he goes to Miami, maybe some people would think that could potentially be the favorite to win the East, although you look at Boston, Milwaukee, and what they've got right now, it is very difficult to break through, but I actually love the pairing of Mitchell and Butler hypothetically.
I think he'd be an incredible fit in Miami. They cannot outbid the Knicks. I just don't think they can get past the Knicks and give Utah enough to get a deal done.
Does Mitchell have any say in that? I mean, does he get to choose that to any degree?
I think to some degree, but the Knicks have enough to offer. It's not like he's going to someplace he doesn't want to be. He wants to be in New York.
And so a final thought on all of this for the moment is how are these things, if at all, intertwined? Which is to say, we got trade scenarios that people are proposing. You have them, Bobby Marks has them, everyone does, that have Donovan Mitchell and Kevin Durant in them. If Mitchell gets traded to the Knicks, or even the Heat in the scenario we're talking about, right now we're not discussing those in the realm of four-way trades. So if Mitchell gets traded to the Knicks, is that a signal that it's less likely that Durant winds up getting to?
Yeah, I think Donovan Mitchell's the kind of young star the Nets would love to get back in this kind of a deal. If he goes off the board, it's yet another reason to think Kevin Durant's going to be a Net next season.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.